Welcome to Cordkillers Reckoning. The world of entertainment is turned upside down, and we are just trying to find out how to watch what we want, where we want, when we want, whenever we want. I'm Tom Merritt. Where's the good stuff, Brian?
Oh, man, it is in the cordkillers@gmail.com inbox where we got a clean sweep of everybody agreeing about Brian's take last week. We'll cover that when it comes to the chatter.
I guess that's true. They are all in agreement.
They all agree about Brian.
There is agreement amongst them about something involving Brian.
You know what? It feels good to be a unifier. Somebody who can bring so many people together.
You've brought the country together. That's amazing. In a world where we didn't think it was possible. Well, let's move right into the supply run because we're going to save cable.
Supply run, supply run, supply run.
Brian, we all know that cable is dead, right?
Yeah, no, we personally killed it. We take responsibility.
We slipped the knife into its mortal flesh. But the reason we think it's dead is because nobody wants to pay a contract for inflated prices for television channels that you don't even need anymore for the most part. You can get almost everything everywhere else. That's why cable's dead, right?
Well, yeah, that's why we started this program back before we, stealthily assassinated cable. Thank goodness it's dead, although we do apologize that basically, look, you guys were locked in that Chinese buffet. You were trapped with all those options, whether you wanted them or not. You're welcome. Now you can buy just Kung Pao or just sushi.
What if I told you that cable is going to survive? And by the end of my explanation of it, you are going to want it.
You know what? I would like to subscribe to your newsletter. It's freetomnewsletter.com.
Yes, that's right. Go to freetomnewsletter.com, and that's the end of this show. Goodbye, everybody. Here's the piece of news that's making me say this. Charter Cable has agreed to distribute Peacock to its cable TV customers at no additional charge. Many of the more astute viewers in our audience and listeners will note, well, okay, that's not the first of these kinds of deals. We've heard about Netflix being on Comcast. We've heard of all kinds of things. I guess it's interesting that Charter is distributing a Comcast property. But think of it this way. If you subscribe to a particular tier of Spectrum cable, you'll get Peacock, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, Max, Paramount Plus, BET Plus, AMC Plus, and Televisa Univision's ViX for one monthly fee, as well as cable television.
Wait. And if you have cable television, then that gives you the ability to sign into all those apps?
Yep.
Like
those services are included in your subscription.
Would that include AMC?
AMC Plus, yep.
Okay.
Paramount Plus, BET Plus, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, Peacock.
So I guess Paramount Plus would not be in there.
Paramount Plus, I just said it.
Yeah. Oh.
It's in there.
Okay. So everything but Netflix?
No
and
Netflix. No Netflix that I know of. No Apple TV. And it doesn't look like Hulu is part of this. But then Hulu's mostly in Disney Plus now anyway, so maybe you
that's right. Not all of Hulu is in Disney Plus.
Like 98% of it is. But yeah, there's a few stragglers.
Yeah, I still haven't run across a Hulu only situation that
like a reason that you have to go back. Yeah. So you may be like, well, hold on, the cable companies this is just an end run, losing money, keeping people. They are paying a wholesale rate to the service providers of these streaming services the same way they pay for channels. A cable TV company pays ESPN a certain amount per subscriber. They are paying a smaller amount per subscriber. And keep in mind, now, even though Peacock doesn't get its full $9.99 per subscriber, it is getting something for every Charter Spectrum level subscriber, whether they use Peacock or not. Same way you pay for Bravo, whether you watch it or not.
What an interesting thorny mess of I'm thinking about all of the bandwidth providing pipelines that all of them use, and now they all, whose responsibility is it to pay for the servers, the bandwidth, the blah 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 blahs. How interesting. All of a sudden, I want to teleport back in time to us in 2010, 2012 and say, hey, Tom, hey, Brian, it's going to be real thorny. This is why everyone's pretending like things are fine with cable, is because it's going to get really thorny down the road.
Now, this might not work, but the proposition to you as a subscriber is, number one, retention, and number two, possibly pulling in some old subscribers and bringing them back into the fold. The retention one's probably the easiest one to figure out, right? I am a cable TV subscriber. I am confused by this strange world of streaming services. I don't want to deal with it. Oh, thank goodness. Spectrum is just giving me the access. Great. I'm not going to go out and buy anything on my own. I'll just keep my cable subscription and get all the streaming services. It's a great way to keep the people who are more likely to be cable TV subscribers still are more likely to be people who just don't want to mess with learning about how streaming services work, and they will keep them by offering these things. But it also, I think, could pull in some people who have left cable to be like, oh, that sounds a lot simpler.
So I'm assuming that we've heard nary a whiff of what the price point's going to be for this, but just that.
It's the same price point you pay for that cable service right now, whatever it is. God. And I don't know what it is, but you know, it is.
All right.
Now, I'm not saying they won't raise the price on that service at some point, but this is just included in that subscription.
Sure. But okay, so here's
so
what
it's
I'm
not
feeling.
A new subscription. This is, I get the Spectrum Select package, I think is what it's called. I now have access to Peacock and ESPN Plus and blah, 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 blah.
Do you think that you have to create a new login and shut down your old login? And I'm thinking about
that,
like importing favorites
for
and
bringing
watch
people
history
back. Right. That is going to be interesting. Like, can I port my watch history? I do know that some of these services allow for that. They say like, oh yeah, you're because I've done it. T-Mobile's paying for your Netflix now. Great. Just tell them what your account is. And then that account is now associated with your T-Mobile, and T-Mobile gives you the credit. I don't know if that's how Charter works. And it may not work that way on every single service. But you know, that is a good question. Like, am I going to lose my profile stuff? They're going to want to be able to say, no, you won't lose your profile stuff. So I'm guessing it's just associating an account. And most of these streaming services have a way of doing that.
Yeah. Well, and for example, there's already kind of a weird thing, like as part of me getting gigabit fiber at my house with AT&T, I have Max, and you know, that login, like, you know, that's not going anywhere. So it just happens. So maybe you'll have a different login. What I'm struck by, Tom, is that part of the flight from cable was a sea of complications. Everything was stupid and complicated on purpose so that they could trick you into buying the 3-product bundle of internet, television, and phone landlines, right? And then it became, you know, mobile or something else. It was too complicated. We wanted the simplicity of let us watch what we want when we want on whatever device we please. Then we got it, and guess what it is now? Complicated. And now we just want it to be simple. We just want to be able to watch. Nothing's changed. We just want to be able to watch what we want when we want on whatever device we please. But it turns out, who's offering it now?
So the upside here is I don't have to think about the service. If I really don't want to think, Spectrum has a product that they can rent you that'll stream all this stuff. But, you know, more likely people in our audience that might be tempted will be like, well, I already have my Roku. I don't want to give that up. You can take my Shield TV from a cold dead hands. But one bill sounds attractive. I don't have to keep track of subscriptions. I don't have to keep track of renewals. It's just all paid. There is the ability, I know with the Peacock deal, to even do the ad-free version. It's an add-on fee to your subscription, right? You just pay the extra $5 a month on top of it. So you can even do that. You can even choose to do that on top of this. But here's the downside. If you do this, you are now at the whim of the cable company to decide which of these services you continue to have access to without paying.
Yes.
So if their deal with Comcast ends in 5 years, is there going to be a carrier dispute? Are you going to lose access to Peacock for a week and a half while they figure it out? Like, all of that stuff comes. And what if one of these services you don't like anymore, and now you feel like you're paying for it, but you don't need it. But there's the Apple TV, right? Where you're like, oh, all the shows I want to watch. Now I got to pay for that in addition to cable. This is not yet the kind of situation where it is the one-stop shop, but it's definitely where cable is going. DirecTV's CEO, Bill Morrow, was talking about their merger with Dish and said that their plan is to offer a one-stop shop for streaming apps like Hulu and smaller bundles of live TV channels, he said, built around specific genres, all delivered, if consumers want it, over the internet. It's a logical response to the widening loss of pay TV subscribers.
I'm so curious about the nuts and bolts implementation of this, because if the pitch is it's easier this way, then all of a sudden I'm thinking of all the complicated stuff about all the devices you'd have to, like we talked about, log out and log in and different stuff. If the pitch is value, then really it's going to come down to that price point. But then you're playing the exact same game that we loathed back in the cable days, which is, yes, I get it on paper. This is a $200 a month value for only $100. But if you're not going to use these services, then you're just back to cable.
The simplicity argument does still work if you are fine using their equipment, because I'm certain if you use the Spectrum box or the Comcast box, you're going to log into that box and it'll automatically log you into everything. Now, that's not always going to work because single sign-in needs some work, but it's pretty good. I do it on the Apple TV, the single sign-in stuff. And so that promises to be like, you won't even have to keep track of your logins. We'll take care of it for you, unless you want to watch it off our box. For some people, that'll be fine. For others, it'll be more complicated, but that's the trade-off. Well, I do get simplified billing. I don't have to keep track of a bunch of different bills. And yeah, I'm paying for some services that maybe I don't watch, but it's still less than paying for the ones I do watch individually. So maybe it does make financial sense. But then what happens when they lose a deal and Max goes away, or the big hot new service comes along and it's not in part of this and you feel like you want to get it? It's an interesting gambit that DirecTV, Charter, Comcast, everybody is like, oh yeah, we will be your service provider. We'll be your intermediary. It works for the businesses because they get more access to more people. It works for the customers because they get simplicity and possibly savings. But just remember, contracts can still be part of this game, and you are giving over control to them of what services you get. That said, you still have the alternative that you never had with cable to be like, well, I'll just go back to paying individually, or I'll just buy the one on my own that they lost. Like if Peacock goes off the air because of a carrier distribution with Charter, you could just go sign up for Peacock on a free trial or something for a week. You actually do still have more choice and more alternatives than you did under the old cable model, where if cable went out or lost a carrier agreement, you're stuck.
That is the biggest difference between the two, because if you think about it, let's reduce everything to an overly simple framework of a binary of like, you could be out there in the wild going and hunting for all of your content here or there, or you could be in this nice, soft, comfortable room that where you're taken care of and you're fed everything. Back in the day, let's say in the cable environment, you really could. You could have everything you want. It's just one little hiccup. Technically, that cage is locked and you're a kept animal.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know why you would want to go outside. You're like, but that's not the point. And they're like, oh, wait, that particular thing you want is not available right now. Yeah. But look at all the other stuff you have.
That room is locked now. You could choose to go outside into the snow without a coat, or you can stay in here and just give up that room. Your choice.
Right. And so basically, we all began this journey in that locked room, and that was the beginning of like we want out. We want to be able to get anything. And then being out here, it's like, man, it is great. There's a lot of things, but they're all over the place. And sometimes you got to go hunting under rocks and all that stuff. And it's like, You know what was neat was the way they would have I don't know, like a Meatloaf Thursdays. Remember Meatloaf Thursdays? It sure was temperature controlled in that locked room.
I'm gonna push this a little farther. This hotel that cable used to operate with the locked rooms and the unlocked rooms, it's still there. Your alternative though is to rent a room, but you also have to rent a bathroom, and it's in a different place. And you have to rent a bed, and that's also in a different place.
And it seems like you have a lot of stuff. You need storage as well.
Yeah. No, it's I think this is the only move they have to preserve their cable subscriptions, or at least slow the decline of it. I don't know if they will have the wherewithal to make this into a compelling service that will bring people back in large numbers. I'm sure it'll bring some people back, but in large enough numbers to make a difference, because they won't want to do the things that they would need to do to make this compelling, which is make it really easy to sign into your apps. Somehow that's a technology issue. Make it guaranteed that you will not lose access to the subscriptions, which is contractually not something they can always promise. And to just keep the price from going up and up and up, which they're going to be too greedy to avoid.
Well, here's where I perceive the gap in exactly what you're talking about. Let's look at the incentives. Is there any incentive for them to actually compete on that? Because as a gigantic, the bulk of their revenue is going to be people just doing cable, and then this could be, let's say 10, 20% of people who otherwise were about to quit and go out into the wilds, stay inside, and maybe you attract 10, 15, maybe 20% of people out in the wilds back in. But either way, let's be generous and say 40% total. That's still a minority share of all of your revenues are these weirdos who like to go in and out of the door and want anything to be taken, want the white glove treatment. So as a result, their benefit is to claim, hey, and this is essentially the extended warranty scam, is basically somebody who's incentivized to sell this thing and get people to sign on the dotted line. They can make all the promises in the world. There's very few incentives for the actual experience to be anything like what you're expecting.
I also wonder, and I'll be really curious to see if it happens, if any of these providers start offering the service outside of their service area.
And that was something we tickled on 2 or 3 weeks ago about whether or not we'd start to see that. And I wonder what kind of gentlemen's agreements they're playing with right now. And
I it could be gentlemen's agreements. It also just could be like, well, but the system isn't built that way. Guarantee you there are people inside these corporations who are resisting. Like there could be an executive who sees the future. He's a Cordkillers listener and she understands that this is the way to go. And then there are engineers who are like, yeah, but the system doesn't work that way. It requires an address. And then there's a lawyer who's like, well, technically we could do it, but we'd have to change a lot of the contractual agreements because, we agreed that we wouldn't operate outside of this service area in order to get this concession from this government and blah, 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 blah. So I think it's going to be bureaucratically complicated for them to do that.
But
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, but in terms of the customer experience, there's no reason that, let's say all of the cable cos, they all go and they play golf together and they all agree that wouldn't it be neat if they could all, air quotes, compete with each other and make all of their customers happy. Oh, you're in Chicago and you're moving to Des Moines. Well, you can stay with my company. Yeah. And then basically the executives shake hands and then they say, we'll have the boys downtown draw up some bandwidth sharing agreements where you'll technically be leasing our bandwidth. Technically,
I don't think bandwidth enters into it. Because your internet provider could be entirely separate in these situations.
Right. But my point is the local people could be providing, because if it's cable, presumably there's a cable that goes at some point. So it could be the company that owns the cable in this area where the other company isn't even there. Like you could, we're back to the word buy. You could air quotes buy the service from one company, but actually it's the other one that serves you.
That's the genius of this business. They're just reselling access. They don't have to provide anything. They're not serving the video. They're,
right, but if it's cable is the service,
cable is a service that is part of this. But as far as the like, you pay us, you get access to Peacock. That's just over the internet.
Right, and
so,
this is
there's they could at some point say we're just offering the streaming package without the cable outside of our market to anybody who wants it. And in fact, DirecTV can do that right now because DirecTV is in every market.
So I guess back to the fundamental question of incentives. Are you optimistic that this will be anything like the vision of easiness? Because I don't know. Part of me wants to believe you only got one shot, but it's like that's not true. They get infinite shots. They could just keep lying and lying, just like they always have. They could, yeah.
I think this has a shot of catching on. I think especially the ones who are already multi-region, like DirecTV Dish combo, and they offer a streaming TV service. Comcast and Spectrum also offer a streaming TV service to their subscribers within their regions, but it's not that, to get to your bandwidth issue, it's not really eating up enough. I assume that they're like, we don't really care about people streaming cable though. What we want to do is be taking a cut of the streaming services billing management. I think DirecTV has a chance to be that, to say like, hey, pay us and just pay one bill and we'll give you everything.
Yeah, that does track because DirecTV has already, since its inception, worked outside of the infrastructure business. Like that's the company that you go to when infrastructure, they're not thinking about sunk cost or legislation in this group, in this area or that area.
And they're already marketing DirecTV Stream as just DirecTV, but over the internet. You won't need a satellite to be installed. They're talking about having smaller bundles of live TV channels. So it could be, hey, we have this bundle. It's got all the major streaming services and the broadcast TV networks. So that you can get the live stuff from broadcast TV networks. That could be pretty compelling for a lot of people, like these slim bundles.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, if there are enough people who dig the simple way to access local news, and then there's stuff like, weather events, and I like we talked about before, when there was a possible tornado in the area, suddenly my TV went on and it was the local NBC affiliate that was my best friend.
I suspect that the cable part of this offering gets smaller and smaller and smaller and eventually goes away, just like we've been assuming cable will go away. But we'll manage your bill for the streaming services part of this might save a few of these companies. Comcast buys Charter at some point, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, all them sharks are going to eat each other at some point.
Well, because then they have like a big chunk of the U.S. and they can compete, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. And the only way you're going to feel like you really understand it is to give us money.
Yeah, well, okay. Look, here's the difference. Remember that whole metaphor of being in a locked room? Yeah, it's temperature control, but you're locked in.
Yeah.
And it's terrible out in the wild.
Right.
But what if there's a middle ground? What if you had a Sherpa, a guide, a local to show you all the best ways to? I'm describing our show, Tom. For what 16 years now, we've been loud, live, and independent. Was 15 years?
We've been loud, live, and independent.
Oh, no. We've been 11. Showing up for 15 years.
Yeah.
Many of them, we've been loud, live, and independent thanks to our beautiful, beautiful patrons. Head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers. Join us because we're just getting more and more amazing stuff on the paid side of things, including which part of the story are we sharing today? In the After Talk segment?
Oh, well, Brian has figured out how to revive his TiVo.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we'll save that part. There are two parts of the story, so we'll save that part for After Talk. You'll be able to hear it with your own RSS feed over at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Let's move on to the search party. We got another trailer for season 2 of the Squid Game coming to Netflix on December 26th. This one shows Gong Yu. You know him as the guy who plays the game in the metro station.
Oh, yeah.
Getting ready for his day.
Okay.
So,
Man.
opening up his suitcase, putting in the little blue and red pieces and the crisp bundles of bills to pay people with, and like heading out to the train station.
Cool. Man, here's an idea. Just give us Squid Game 2.
They'll do that December 26th, and not before, young man. That's your Christmas, the day after Christmas present. I will say, if you follow K-dramas, this guy, this actor, from one of the best, which is called Goblin or Guardian the Great God, depending on how it's translated. And so I think that's what they're doing with this one, is like, hey, you all like Gong Yu? Here's more Gong Yu to prove that there will be some in this season. I expect he'll be in 1 or 2 episodes, though. I don't think they're increasing his role much.
Yeah. And I guess there is a value to... Because again, it's like there's no call to action. They're not telling you to subscribe to anything. They're just sort of priming the pump. This is, as I think of it like you're pulling the rubber band back. When you're like, why are you pulling that rubber band back? And you don't see why you would do that until the day of release. Like, this is all pre-purchasing attention so that they can brag about the day numbers, the day of release.
2.5 months. 2.5 months. Olivia Rodrigo is doing a concert movie. We've seen a ton of people doing concert movies, lots of different approaches to it. Rodrigo's concert movie is coming to Netflix, so you'll just be able to watch it if you have a Netflix subscription starting October 29th. It will be her show from the Intuit Dome in Los Angeles, doing songs from her latest album, Guts, and her debut album, Sour. The logline reads, "In this exhilarating concert special, get a look at Olivia on her Guts World Tour and experience her powerful performances about heartbreak and betrayal."
I have a lot of questions about this, but most important of them is how does Amos feel about this movie in particular and the concert movie trend in general?
Seems like he might be excited about it. I don't know.
I like this. I like this a lot. I was a real big fan of the whole classic Metallica releasing the box set with concerts from different periods. I didn't get the chance to see this tour. I didn't get a chance to see the Sour tour, so I'm excited to see this in a full production versus the YouTube handhelds that you get to see. I have not watched the Taylor Swift one because I do get to see that concert next. Jesus, is it next month? It's next month. I get to go to Toronto to go watch that.
Nice.
I like this mostly because there are too many times when there's great concerts out there, as we talked last week. You don't get to see all your favorites, right? Until they're past their prime or whatever. When you can see someone, this is towards the end of her tour, so a lot of people have already either seen it or not been able to see it. And this is awesome. This is great for people like me that had no chance at all to see it. Either of the tours, and now I get to see a full production value of it. I like that. I like that a lot.
It's good for Netflix. I'm curious why no theater run. Taylor Swift did theater run, then rental, then Disney Plus. I'm curious why this is straight to Netflix.
I would imagine there's a bit of a prestige element because the concert business is a little bit tricky. Part of the reason that everybody knows and allows scalpers at all their events is because if they actually charged market rates for the tickets,
nobody allows scalpers anymore. There's no scalpers anymore. It's all legitimized scalpers called StubHub and SeatGeek and all that. But your point's going to be the same.
They're technically called scalpers. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't make them not scalpers just because they're on a website.
Good point.
They're third-party markets, but the reason they exist is because the band can't be caught charging what the seats are actually worth. So they do the kabuki play of having, regular tickets and then being shocked when they sell out so fast and then everybody buys them aftermarket. Similarly, Taylor Swift can do whatever Taylor Swift wants because, number one, being a pioneer at that time, no matter what happens, it's marked as a phenomenon and a success. Big number, small number, you're competing with no numbers. Whereas now you have a benchmark. So I would imagine that any amount of risk would be involved with a theatrical release because it would be compared to something. Whereas with Netflix, you have no worries about comparison. You get to control the narrative I guess my point is it seems like it's the opposite direction to reduce risk. So Beyonce,
went to theaters, then rental, purchase, stop. Did not go to streaming. Other big acts tend to go, we'll do a theater, then we'll do a pay-per-view, and then maybe we stop. Or maybe if we're big enough, we do a Disney Plus. Whereas Olivia Rodrigo's going the other direction. She's like skipping the theater and all of that and just being like, let me just put it straight on Netflix.
I would imagine that number one, we don't know the number of zeros on that check.
Yep. Right.
So,
could be that Netflix has money.
Could be that simple. Number two, Netflix is in a curious place where it's not as prestigious to my eyes as Apple TV aspires to be,
Right.
But it's significantly more prestigious than any other streaming service. And so it could kind of be a prestige play with some zeros attached.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to this too, though, Amos. Just to chime in on that. I was unable to go to this, even though it was in Los Angeles. We weren't able to get tickets. I mean, we could have bought tickets from what Brian describes as a scalper, but we didn't. And so I'll be looking forward to seeing this. She apparently puts on a good show. The Intuit Dome. I've been to the Intuit Dome. The sound there is okay. It's not the best venue for sound. So that's interesting to choose that as the place you record it. Although when you record it, you can make up for a lot. So maybe it doesn't matter.
That goes back to what I was saying about the Metallica concert the second night in Seattle, where the sound in the stadium wasn't all that great, but the recorded sound they produced on YouTube sounds great. So yeah, it'll be interesting because I haven't been to the Intuit Dome, so I don't have experience there at all. So
there's also, wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of black magic voodoo when it comes to calculating the age demographic, as Kramer 00 in the chat points out. Could be that the appeal is such that they can reach more younger demographic, and Netflix equals something you won't get on the theatrical experience, which is the ability to finish it and immediately press play again.
Yeah, I wonder if Netflix says, we don't want you to do an exclusive theater run, right? Because otherwise, why not do what all the other acts are doing and be like, yeah, we'll do a theater run, then we'll bring it to your streaming service. Netflix may be like, no, we'll write a couple extra zeros here. You don't do a theater run. That would make sense.
I wonder if timing has anything to do with it, because like Taylor Swift, when she did her theater run, it was at the end of the North American tour, part one. Right as she was getting ready to go overseas, and then everything, and she was finally coming back to North America, right as all that hype is starting to die down. So I wonder if maybe Olivia Rodrigo is releasing this now, and is because it's at the end of the tour, and she isn't looking for like another bump to sell more tickets for another period or something like that,
or get award considerations or something. Yeah.
There's also, when you get near the end of the tour, there's a moment when you hit peak chrome-like polish, and like there was a time that the Brian Brushwood Bizarre Magic show, at some point I had the very best stage show I will ever do of that show. I don't know when it was, but I know it's in the rearview mirror. So my guess is, if you want it archived, if you want it perfect, then you go all in. And my guess is there's other factors as well, like, whoever the director is for all this, the team they have for the production, a lot of considerations. And when you're at that level of success as an artist, sometimes you're motivated quite simply by, I just want the perfect capturing of this thing that I've spent so much of my life building to.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, Brian, is not watching this on Netflix tonight, it's a bad idea, right?
I assume that's a reference to a song.
Got it in one.
But Tom, no matter when you watch it, it'll be good for you.
Thank you. Driver's license. All right. Samsung's Fast Service added more than 4,000 new dramas in partnership with CJ, E&M, New ID, and a distribution company called KT Alpha. The channels added include a K-dramas channel, K-thrillers, K-crime, and K-romance. And Joker, Folie à Deux, the sequel to the Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, this one includes Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn, suffered the worst box office debut so far this year. They got 37.8 million in the first weekend. The projections had originally been 70 million. They revised them down to 50 million, and they still missed it. By comparison, the first Joker with Joaquin Phoenix earned 39 million on Friday of its release. So this is less than a third of what the original Joker made. It also got a D grade from CinemaScore, which CinemaScore doesn't ever give. I wasn't that familiar with CinemaScore until I saw this on Variety, but CinemaScore goes and interviews people watching in the theater and says, what did you think? What did you think? What did you think? And they get a real verified audience score from people watching the movies. And the people watching it gave it a D.
Well, I don't know about you, but I cannot wait to hear what somebody who actually saw the movie thinks of it. But I will say that number one, Joker, the first Joker, I believe made over $1 billion, for a rated R comic book movie. Number two, I believe Warner Brothers had a string of misses, and they really needed this to hit. That's a really bad thing if financially it's a disaster. And
it's a 200 million budget, so not good.
Yeah, although I wonder how much. You never know how much of that is marketing and
that's true. But 37.8 million is, budget or not.
Yeah,
not good.
No, it's crazy.
So Brian, what did you watch? Let's check it out in the buried treasure.
Most people want to know why they suddenly got rich.
Buried treasure.
Good. Did you see anything good this weekend?
No, I didn't, Tom. I only watched the Joker movie.
Oh, no. If CinemaScore had been in your theater, what grade would you have given it?
Okay, so I spent most of the movie wondering if I was a broken human being or something, because I felt nothing, Tom. Now, I'm like, maybe you feel nothing because you aren't inherently attracted to musicals. And then I immediately thought about a bunch of musicals that I freaking loved. We talked about, my very favorite episode of The After Party was the musical episode.
Right. Okay. So and maybe not that. Okay.
It's like, maybe you don't like this Joker franchise. It was like, no, the Joker movie was easily
Original
one
Joker
of your
was
top
good.
2 or 3 movies of that year for you, Brian. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe you don't like courtroom dramas. I'm like, well, you have played Ace Attorney an awful lot for somebody who doesn't like courtroom dramas.
Court TV was real essential to your coming up too. So
Yep. And then, but I kid you not, Tom, I sat there just feeling nothing. It was mainly, imagine just another room was open while Joker was playing in another theater, and all you heard was people talking about how good that Joker movie was. I got bored. I checked my watch. I checked the time. I never do that.
Yeah.
And now keep in mind, one of the I love things that aren't doing what they're air quotes supposed to, and that's what I loved about Joker. It was supposed to, air quotes, be a comic book movie, but instead it was a remix of Scorsese films with a little bit of mental illness, public policy thrown in
with Robert De Niro, for seasoning. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this one, it's like, it starts off very much because the music is not diegetic. It's all in people's heads.
Yeah.
It left me with a feeling of no stakes. The first movie had concrete life and death things happening. And they do a little mind screw job in there.
Yeah.
But this one was just a bouncy room. And everything that happened, I was like, I don't know, did that actually happen or did it not happen?
And then it turns out a lot of the time it did not.
I still don't know. I legit cannot tell you what happened in that movie because I don't know. Like, for all I know, they could do the Brazil ending and then pull out and it's a dude being tortured having a fantasy. Meanwhile, my daughter Josie, who was, I guess, 12, 11 when we saw the first Joker movie, she was very proud of the fact that she turned her head just as Robert De Niro's brains exploded. Statute of limitations on that spoiler. She hated the movie for a different reason. It's because they screwed with all the canon. Everything she loves about Harley Quinn just got thrown out the window. They reduced Harley Quinn in a really not good way. Anyway.
So D?
Yeah. Solid D.
Not
which
an F.
Which is
Not an
amazing
F.
to go from an A to a D.
A+ by some accounts, right? And I agreed. Well, that's sad for Warner. I want to recommend a reality cooking show as an aperitif to that. Culinary Class Wars is on Netflix. And the idea is that you've got 20 like award-winning chefs, Michelin star holders, Beard Award winners, like people who have won respectable top competitions and everything. They're the white coats. Then you have 80 popular chefs. These are chefs that might have a following on social media or might just have been written up and they've got lines out the door, but they don't have any accolades. They don't have anything to like put with their name. Some of them have actually worked for the white coats, and they're off on their own, starting their own thing. And the competition starts with the white coats getting a pass. That's the class war, right? Like they've proved themselves. They get a pass. And the two judges walk around tasting the food of the other 80 competitors and just on the spot decide whether they're eliminated or not. There are only 20 seats for the black coats to occupy. As soon as they're filled, that's it. So there's a pressure to cook fast, but you've got to impress them because if you cook fast and they hate it, you're gone.
That is brutal.
It's amazing. And it's amazing to see what people do and how they impress the chefs. One of the chef judges is a commercial success. Lots of restaurants and very much a like we want to bring good food and good tasting food to everyone. The other chef is the only 3-star Michelin chef in his country.
Oh, wow.
And so you also don't know which judge you're going to get till they walk up to your table. The one is just going on taste. Does it taste good? Then I won't eliminate you. And his standards are really high. The other one is like, I want to know what your intentions are. What were you trying to do? Did you achieve what you were trying to do? Anyway, it's fascinating. And then once you get the 20 black coats and the 20 white coats, then they challenge each other to one-on-ones to winnow down who's going to advance to the next round. And they're given an ingredient after they accept the challenge. So they don't know what they're going to be cooking. And that kind of levels the playing field. But I haven't made it all the way through yet. It's still kind of being released week to week. It's really fun, really interesting, really good food. If you like that sort of thing, I totally recommend it.
Cool.
That is Culinary Class Wars on Netflix. If you got something we should be on the lookout for, email us, cordkillers@gmail.com. Do you know what I started doing recently, Brian?
Writing another newsletter?
No. Remember, I merged a newsletter.
Oh, that's right. You killed a newsletter.
I killed a newsletter. But you know what I've done since then?
What?
I read the newsletter out loud.
Oh, that's right.
And record it.
And how have you enjoyed that? Has that changed the way you've written? It's like you stopped writing tongue twisters?
Yeah, a little bit. It also lets me proofread the newsletter because I'm reading it before I send it out. It's fun. It's fun. And I'll do a little ad-libbing. I'll do a little throw in a little extra thing if you're listening that I think of in the moment. It's great. And I've gotten some really good feedback from folks who've been listening to it. In fact, I've even got a couple people who are like, yeah, I'm not really into reading newsletters, but because you're reading it to me, I decided to subscribe. So you can go find that at freetechnewsletter.com. It is the daily tech newsletter, and it's free every Thursday. If you want to pay for the service, you can get it Monday through Friday. I'm doing it Monday through Friday, but it's free every Thursday. So go check it out at freetechnewsletter.com. Let's scan the horizon.
Send a scanning to avoid.
Scanning the horizon!
Remember when CNN Plus started and then ended like really fast?
Yeah.
CNN announced a new subscription service.
It's called CNN Divided By.
Hey, clever move this time. They didn't give it a name. It's just a paywall.
You know what? That may be the smart thing to do.
It's not a bad move. $3.99 a month or $29.99 a year. You will be limited now if you go into CNN on how many articles you can read without a subscription. They didn't say what that limit will be. I have not yet run into it. But if you do run into it, you'll be offered the subscription. Subscribers also get fewer digital ads. There's a documentary program on recent topics and some more robust interactive features they're going to give to the subscribers. And then they say over time, they'll add more video to the product, but really, they just went a whole different direction and went Bloomberg, Reuters, New York Times on this stuff.
That's really an interesting space that I hadn't considered at all. Like all of these big brands that we've been talking about, they build their entire business model on you clearly know what you are and are not going to get. If you want to watch Hacks, you're going to get Max and so on.
Yeah.
But the news is a different animal because sometimes the Google News points you to an article and you get to read the article. Sometimes it demands money. Sometimes it's the Atlantic and you get to read the first paragraph and then that's it. But eventually, like I got worn down. I'm about to get worn down and pay for The Economist now because I'm tired of not getting things or getting them intermittently.
Oh, you mean the podcast, The Economist podcast?
Yeah, because they did the worst thing they could possibly do, Tom. They made it free for me and they just gave it to me and I enjoyed it. And they said, that's what's on the inside. And I was like, oh, you're getting me.
Cruel. I paid for it immediately. As soon
We
as
should
they
talk
said
about
was
it in the after talk segment so all the patrons can hear about it.
Yeah. We are in the end game of the Diamond Sports saga. Diamond Sports is the subsidiary of Sinclair that owns the rights to a lot of regional sports in the United States, Major League Baseball, NBA, hockey, or used to. The owner of Bally Sports said Wednesday that it plans to drop all of its Major League Baseball teams from its channels except for the Atlanta Braves. They're like holding the Atlanta Braves hostage. This is not what they want to do. This is them dealing in bankruptcy court with having to put a plan. And they're saying at this point, the only one we can afford to do next season is the Braves. Andrew Goldman from Diamond's legal team said, to be clear, rejecting these teams is not our preferred path. Our preferred plan is to bring as many teams into the reorganized company's fold as possible. Said they're still in negotiations with the individual clubs, but they are not hearing from the commissioner's office. And all the other reporting we've talked about for a while is that the commissioner's office would like to just bring all these rights back into Major League Baseball and hold them themselves. Major League Baseball's attorney James Bromley on Wednesday told the bankruptcy judge it was, quote, unfortunate we are being sandbagged this way, and added that some of our clubs are being left out in the cold again. What are we going to do? I guess they'll just have to assign the rights to us, is not how he ended his quote.
Man, it's stories like these that make me wish I knew more about sports.
Yeah, I mean, basically this is Diamond seems to be taking a gamble of saying, well, if you're not going to play ball with us, then we're not going to stream most of your team's games. And then what are you going to do? And it seems like Major League Baseball is like, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I'll keep an eye on that one for you as well. Speaking to the Financial Times, Kelly Day, Vice President of Prime Video International, said that Amazon is going to offer more Prime Video ad slots to advertisers next year. This is a story that is meant for advertisers, right? The advertising provider, right? The platform, Amazon says, hey, advertisers, we know you want to buy more slots. Great news. We're going to have more slots next year. Did not get into specifics, but confirmed that Prime Video's ad load will ramp up a little more in 2025, saying subscriber churn in response to the ads had been much, much less than we anticipated. I always say people complain more about ads than they do things about them. And it seems like Prime Video has found that out. Putting ads in there did not cause people to cancel their subscriptions or even stop watching in large amounts. So they need to add more ad load to Amazon Prime Video in order to satisfy all the demand for ads.
You know what's weird is I kind of feel like they're straight shooting on that, because it's actually bad if the ads are boring and repetitive, because you don't want people to get accustomed to there being no ads, and then an advertiser comes in and people get annoyed. So you got to kind of put something there, which is why you so often see like in-house ads and so on. But yeah, well, good problems, question mark?
Good problems for Amazon, good problems for advertisers, more
problems.
ads for viewers is
Yeah.
what that is how that equation goes. Amazon is also joining Toshiba, Sharp, Metz, and Panasonic in building in Freely to the TVs it sells in the UK. Freely is backed by the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, and Channel 5. It is a successor to Freeview, where you could watch stuff freely over the air. Freely is backed by these license supported entities. It gets complicated when you start to break down who gets what, but the TV license fee in some way benefits these channels, and Freely, if you are a license payer, is a way to watch this television this television content in the UK. Anyway, Amazon is a big maker of TVs. They are going to build it into their Fire OS TVs. They are not going to build it into streaming sticks or set-top boxes.
Man, what a good book selling company Amazon is turning out to be. First, they are like, okay, we sell books. Wait, but then we have to ship the books. Well, let's just destroy UPS by being a logistics company. Wait, but then the stuff gets there and we make content. Well, you know what? Let's just get into the manufacturing business and manufacture all the things.
Oh, don't forget, our website is loading really slow. Maybe we should come up with a better way of hosting things. Oh, let's also turn that into Amazon Web Services, which will provide most of our cash for the foreseeable future. Yeah, no, it's interesting to see that. Speaking of the Fire TV, did you buy one? Brian called me this weekend from a Best Buy on the cusp of a decision.
Yeah, you might as well have said, Brian called me from 1999. He said he was standing at a Best Buy.
We'll explain why you were at the Best Buy in the after talk, because it involved your TiVo, right?
Yeah, well, I found myself impulse buying a set-top box because we had talked about, the refresh cycles for the Rokus and various devices, and I just... I needed a universal remote for reasons we'll talk about in the after talk. And so I bought a universal remote, and then I thought, well, I'm just going to use it at HQ. And God, I hate how slow that built-in service on the TV is. And then, and so I went to the dongles and sticks and stuff, and I looked at all the prices. They all reeked of possibly being underpowered. Like my fear as a consumer was that I was going to buy it, plug it in, and it was going to be just as slow as with the television. So I called you, Tom, and listeners, I essentially was like, Tom, what is the fastest thing here? And I ended up getting the Fire Cube, which was just over $100.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit more.
And I sometimes steer people away from Amazon because it does tend to like shove you into the Amazon universe, similar to the way Google TV tries to shove you into the Google and YouTube verse, unless that's your thing. And with Brian, you are a Prime Video like first household. Like you add on services to Prime Video, and Prime Video carries your stuff. So that might be an advantage for you. And then you said you wanted the voice assistant too, so that kind of nailed it.
Yeah, because we didn't have a voice assistant at HQ. So I got to experience setting that up, which here's the irony is I paid $50 for the fanciest universal remote. And I was like, well, I might not need it for this project, but at the very least I can use it on this. It turns out the Fire TV Cube, Tom, is so good. It got parts of my setup to talk to each other that I hadn't figured out how to set up, because
Nice.
I inherited this setup from my brother, and I have no idea how this was all set up. But then it figured it out, and now
Nice.
I just walk into the room and I tell the A word to turn on the things, and it's great. The service, the setup was really, really quick and easy. And now, and on top of that, because this is a place different than my home, it was pretty easy to set up guardrails so like a guest can't be buying things on my Amazon account,
Yeah,
but
right.
they can see the content that we have logged in. 10 out of 10 has been my experience so far.
Very good, very good. Well, if you're still wondering why Brian needed to buy a universal remote at a Best Buy, and you are like, wait, did Tom use the word TiVo? Stick around for After Talk, patrons. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Let's move on to the cheddar.
Got mail.
Lots of good emails today. Russell said, heard you discussing improvements to movie theaters and wanted to let you know that this is already underway at my local theater in New York City. The AMC at Lincoln Center has already upgraded to laser projectors, is changing out the seats, and has started to improve the food offerings with some upscale burgers. Always enjoy the show. Really like the new direction you've been taking it. Thank you, Russell.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Hopefully he didn't mean playing AI generated content on the show as
That's the new direction. No, I hope so. We also got John. Salutations, you wonderful people. This is a rare instance where I 100% disagree with Schwood. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people complain about losing games on Steam or books on Audible because they think they own the product and not a license to the product. There is absolutely widespread misconception on this. Go look up various subreddits for evidence. And that's just the people who are aware and involved in Reddit. Now, what about people like one's less tech-knowledgeable friends? They might not even have a concept of digital licenses. I suspect it's not a big issue for your audience since they're a self-selected group of people who keep themselves informed on things like this.
Yeah, I think John hinted at something that is important to recognize. Where it may be that I had forgotten that you and I exist in a bubble, and it's like these are challenges and frustrations that are 30 years old to the likes of you and me, Tom.
Yeah, but they're brand new.
But I have to acknowledge that maybe there's a blind spot. And this is a song I've been singing for 20 years of like, hey, you're not really buying, it's like you want to make sure that you keep it backed up. And if people, what we saw a lot of in the emails is, hey, Brian, you're in a bubble and a lot of people do need this hand holding, to which I say I stand corrected.
Now, John, a different John, has another take on this. Brian used the example of cigarette advertising, saying people were already quitting. I like the law because I don't want to see cigarette advertising. I don't care if it keeps people from smoking. Then again, I don't like any advertising. I want it all stopped. Yes, I use the ad-free downloads because I am a patron. Thank you. Bye-bye, John.
This also was a sentiment we saw a lot, which is like I don't care about the hypothetical big picture economist Vulcan brain stuff. I just know I hate it when people say the word buy and you're not really buying it.
Yeah.
Is this going to cause that to end? Great.
Good.
I'm for it. That's the end of the discussion, which again, I could appreciate that take as well.
And then Brian's favorite of the emails about this from Greg, Brian. English is a living language that is changing over time, so the meaning of buy can change. Also, Brian, you can't use rent there because that's not what rent means.
Fair point. However, you both can be true, that language can be changing over time and that at each given moment, the word will mean something. And to be honest, that was kind of the point I was trying to get to is legislation doesn't evolve over time. It's a flashbulb moment. But then that law will have to be enforced 20 years from now, where the word buy online will mean something different.
And then finally, Richard Gunther, a longtime listener and occasional guest, writes, not sure where I land on the debate over the ridiculousness of the purchase language legislation, but I thought I'd point out that Apple doesn't use the get language for apps you can license for a one-time fee. It just shows the price.
Yeah, that's brilliant because the free stuff, it just says get, and then the pay stuff, it doesn't say the word buy. It just is a button with a price tag on it,
Like,
which is
there's the mounties.
well, and if anything, that would be a case of market innovation, which without the heavy-handed something.
Or perhaps in anticipation of heavy-handed
Yes.
regulation and a chance to try to avoid it.
Yeah. That's fair.
Well, that's it for Cordkillers. If you would like to go to our website, it's cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I reckon we'll talk to you next time.
Women Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.